Welcome! This restoration video aims to be not only a tutorial, but also a historical presentation dedicated to the legendary A11 watch, a timeless icon of World War II. Today, I'll take you through an extraordinary horological journey intertwined with courageous adventures and dramatic events, a story written by men who wore the A11 while facing the challenges of the theaters of war in Europe, Africa, and the Pacific. The A11 became a recognized icon worn by soldiers of the United States Army, although some supplies were allocated to other Allied forces, including Soviet soldiers. Each A11 was the product of ingenuity from prestigious brands like Waltham, Elgin, and Bulova, selected to produce these extraordinary pieces destined to make history. These watches were not just timekeeping instruments, but tangible symbols of courage and hope for those who wore them. They were meant to be faithful companions on the bloody stages of war, accompanying soldiers in their daring exploits and epic challenges that could make the difference between life and death. The watch featured in this video is a Waltham Type A11 in a waterproof version, industrially produced by Waltham for the United States Army, cataloged as Navigation Hack Watch Army Type A11. These watches boasted durability features with a distinctive black dial, a diameter of 32 mm, and the ability to be dust-proof or waterproof, ensuring optimal performance even in the most adverse conditions. But what exactly do the dust-proof and waterproof features of these watches mean? The precision and reliability of a military watch were crucial, and these specifications were meant to ensure they were ready to withstand extreme situations and rugged challenges. The term dustproof indicated the watch's ability to resist the infiltration of dust and debris, thus protecting the delicate internal mechanism. This ensured that the watch could continue to function in dusty environments like battlefields. On the other hand, the waterproof feature indicated that the watch was designed to resist water. This was essential to allow soldiers to continue using their watches during water missions or adverse weather conditions without fearing damage from moisture or rain. Imagine soldiers in action in trenches, on warships, or in military vehicles where dust, mud, and water were commonplace. Thanks to these features, the watch proved to be a reliable and resilient companion, ready to support its wearers in the most critical moments. The allure of these watches lies in their ability to survive the passage of time and the challenges of war. Resistance to dust and water made them reliable tools, ready to witness the deeds of soldiers, recording the inexorable flow of historical events and continuing to beat unwaveringly in moments of despair and hope. Wearing an A11 means carrying a piece of history, a connection to the past. Today, these watches are sought after by collectors and history enthusiasts because they encapsulate not only the craftsmanship of those times, but also the dramatic stories of those who wore them. Even this Waltham 11 has a unique story to tell. Every scratch, mark, and dent encapsulates fragments of life that have traversed time, traveling across oceans and continents. Although the specific history of this watch remains unknown, we can imagine the experiences of those who wore it in the most intense and dramatic moments of battles, in frantic and tense times. This little travel companion was a silent witness to the drama of war. As I passionately work on this fascinating Waltham A11, I realize the importance of sharing every moment of this adventure with you. I created this video to document the entire process of disassembly, cleaning, and reassembly of this historical watch, an experience I cherish with care and dedication in my spare time. During the restoration, I tried to preserve the authenticity of this historical piece, imagining the stories it might have carried over the years. This video is a tribute to all watch enthusiasts and history lovers because I believe it is important to share this passion with anyone drawn to the timeless charm of these vintage watches. I warmly invite each of you to follow this restoration adventure and subscribe to the channel because it is thanks to your interest and support that I can continue to pursue this shared passion for the world of historical watches. After completing the disassembly of all the components, we shift our focus to the heart of the watch, the barrel, and its mainspring. Everything revolves around it, and its condition reveals much about its history. With great caution, I disassemble the barrel and examine it closely. Rust is the inevitable trace of passing years. It's incredible to think that this spring has endured almost 80 years of history, witnessing events and the passage of time that have left their mark on it. This small component is the true engine of the watch, responsible for storing the energy that keeps the entire mechanism alive. With patience, I dedicate myself to cleaning every single part of the barrel, using a specific degreasing solution to ensure effective cleaning without compromising the integrity of the components. Choosing a non-water-based solution is strategic. Water could seep into minute spaces, facilitating the formation of new rust. My goal is to carefully remove every trace of rust and dirt, restoring the barrel to its original state as much as possible and ensuring it is ready to accommodate the new mainspring. After completing manual cleaning of the most compromised parts, it's time for the actual washing. Here, the specially designed and built automatic washer for washing my watches comes into play. You can find the video of its construction in the end card. I invite you to take a look because it might be inspiring for those who, like me, are looking for an economical and functional alternative for their hobby projects. The washer is an essential element in the restoration process as it allows for thorough and accurate cleaning of the delicate watch components. This DIY solution has allowed me to create a custom device tailored to my needs. I decided to share this creation with you because I believe that the passion for watchmaking and restoration of historical pieces can bring together people with different experiences and skills. The worn-out mainspring, exhausted by the relentless passage of time, will finally find a worthy replacement. A new and vigorous spring ready to give new life to this fascinating watch. From this moment on, and throughout the reassembly phase, I wanted to highlight each part and its corresponding codes that make up the mechanism. I do this with the intention of making the process more accessible and understandable for those who, after me, will endeavor to revise and restore a similar watch. After discovering that the hacking lever is broken, I immediately set out to rebuild it. I create a 3D model of the original piece based on its design. This allows me to have a precise guide for reconstruction. I choose to use an old adaptable balance spring for the purpose. Unfortunately, these components are very difficult to find, and reconstruction is the only way to restore the watch's functionality. As mentioned earlier, this watch has been classified as a navigation hack watch. The term hack system indicates the ability to stop the second hand when the crown is pulled out. This feature was expressly desired by the United States military, as it was crucial for coordinating troop actions and maneuvers, necessitating a common point of reference for executing a more complex military strategy. The procedure became almost a ritual. The officer announced the exact time to be set. His men adjusted the watch and awaited the signal. At his command, everyone pushed the crown inwards, setting the second hand in motion. The result was perfectly synchronized unity. And here it is, ready to demonstrate its function once again. We're finally ready for reassembly. As I reassemble the movement, I want to share some historical insights about this maison that has left an indelible mark on horology. Founded in the United States, specifically in Roxbury, Massachusetts, before relocating 4 years later to the picturesque town from which it would take its name, Waltham has always been distinguished by the exceptional precision and top-notch performance of its instruments. This manufacturer revolutionized the industry through a series of unprecedented innovations and technological advancements. The company's history is quite complex, but it all began in 1850, when three brilliant minds, Edward Howard, David Davis, and Aaron Dennison, met in Roxbury and decided to bring to life their vision of a company that produced high-quality watches at affordable prices. It was a revolutionary idea for its time, introducing the concept of interchangeable parts to watchmaking. Thus, in 1851, after some initial challenges in calibrating the machinery, the Waltham Watch Company was founded. The following year, the first watches were completed. The initial 17 were marked with the label Warren MFG Co., while numbers 18 to 100 bore the inscription Warren Boston. Subsequent pieces, up to 800, were labeled Samuel Curtis. These early watches are exceedingly rare and highly valuable. In 1853, the name changed again to the Boston Watch Company, and shortly thereafter, in 1854, a new facility was opened in Waltham, Massachusetts. Despite the founders' remarkable skill in watch production, they faced financial difficulties, leading the Boston Watch Company to bankruptcy in 1857. However, the story had a happy ending. The bankrupt company was purchased at a public auction by a man named Royal Robbins, who restructured the business and renamed it Appleton, Tracy & Co. in 1859. This company merged with another called the Wallam Improvement Company, giving rise to the American Watch Company. During the Civil War, the company encountered new challenges, halting production. With the war ongoing, finding a market for their watches became a serious issue. They decided to drastically downsize to keep the factory operational. The strategy worked, and the company survived. From then on, the watches were simply known by the name Waltham. In its 100 years of existence, the factory produced 40 million pieces, including watches, tachometers, compasses, time fuses for bombs, and other precision instruments. The introduction of the assembly line allowed Waltham to produce watches more efficiently, reducing costs and improving quality. It was the first maison in the world to adopt this methodology, paving the way for large-scale industrial production. A little curiosity. In 1876, Jacques David, before becoming the director of Longines, was sent to the United States to investigate American watch factories. Upon his return, he wrote a 108-page manuscript providing detailed information about the production of Waltham and Elgin watches. This led Longines to adopt this new production method a few years later. As the Swiss were concerned that the Americans might see these reports as industrial sabotage, only a few handwritten copies were made, and the reports were hidden for 115 years, until Longines published a facsimile in 1992. Rapport à la Société intercantonale des industries du Jura sur la fabrication de l'horlogerie aux États-Unis is probably the most important document in the history of modern horology. These unique features made Waltham the choice of prestigious institutions in the 20th century, such as the U.S. Armed Forces and railways in 52 countries. Waltham was favored by illustrious figures like Sir Ernest Shackleton during the conquest of the South Pole or Robert Peary in the conquest of the North Pole. During the two world wars, the company became a supplier of watches to various armed forces, demonstrating robustness and water resistance. Its wristwatches produced for the U.S. Army during World War I were called trench watches and were characterized by their high legibility due to oversized numerals on the dial. Some of them had a protective cage for the glass, while the winding crown protruded to allow its use even with gloves on. During that time, the company also produced onboard instruments for ships and aircraft. In 1927, an 8-day power reserve Waltham instrument was used on the Spirit of St. Louis during Charles Lindbergh's historic transatlantic flight. Finally, for those interested in delving deeper, I recommend reading Stan Schubernat's book, where you'll discover what the first waterproof watch was. But let's return to our watch. The caliber I'm currently revising is a caliber 1061 model 1942, equipped with 16 jewels and a Breguet hairspring. It's also referred to as a 6 Nero due to its size. As you've likely noticed from the outset, the main plate was originally designed to accommodate small seconds, as other types from that era had this configuration. In this model, a bridge was added and the original center wheel was modified, all to meet the requirements of the military, which demanded central seconds. In fact, the designation Type A11 doesn't pertain to the characteristics of the model itself, but rather to the specifications these watches were required to meet, as I've already mentioned. Considering that the Model 42 is the third series of 6 Nero-size movements made by Waltham, the first was the 1898 Sapphire with 15 jewels, produced in 290,850 examples from 1900 until 1933. It was used in both pocket and wristwatch cases. The watch I'm restoring belongs to the family of field watches. During World War II, as we've mentioned before, watches were produced according to the specifications of the United States Army and defined the functionality and aesthetics of the quintessential field watch. The Type A11 featured a black dial with large Arabic numerals for hours and a minute scale on the outer edge, both in white for easy and immediate readability. The case was made of chrome-plated brass, steel, or silver, depending on the availability of materials permitted during the wartime period. As mentioned earlier, the primary functionality was the hack system. Synchronizing actions within a military unit or with other units for actions such as infantry charges or artillery fire was of vital importance. For those who wish to delve deeper, copies of the original manuals can be found online, as well as on my blog. Problem identified. The pin is off-center. At this point, we'll need to proceed with disassembly and proper repositioning. Here it is at last. This little gem can now march again just as it did during the tumultuous days of World War II. Here we notice the black Waltham lettering blending with the dial. It was a typical characteristic of these watches. Now, to restore it to the most faithful semblance possible to the original, even by looking at the available images on the internet, I need to work on the hands. Indeed, the second's hand has clearly been replaced, and the hour and minute hands have been poorly repainted with what I believe is enamel. I managed to find a hand from a Waltham with the same movement, but it's from the civilian market. It's actually made of brass. Comparing it to images of other watches, it's perfectly identical in shape. After degreasing the hands, I'll proceed with painting using an airbrush. I'll try to make them as close as possible to the original paint. All Type A11 watches, including Bulova, Elgin, and Waltham, featured exclusively printed dials without any luminescent coating. This is a crucial aspect for those engaging in the restoration of such watches. As many may know, the vast majority of watches produced during that period were equipped with radioluminescent paint, a radioactive substance that doesn't emit light directly, but, through a complex atomic process, stimulates the phosphorus present in the luminescent compound. It's the phosphorus, constantly energized by the invisible energy emitted by the radioactive substance, that produces the brightness. Considering that radium has a half-life of about 1,600 years, you can well imagine that restoring these watches can be seriously dangerous. It's precisely this aspect, combined with the allure of the Type A11 watches, that inclines me towards collecting them. Comparing them, there's a clear difference in color that contrasts with the indices darkened by time on the dial, so I'll have to do my best to match the hands to the same shade. So I'll proceed to age them using a small and simple trick. I'd say the result is satisfactory. We can proceed to the assembly of the hands then. As I mentioned before, the cases of these watches could be made of various materials. This specimen's case shows no signs of chrome plating and has a semi-lustrous appearance, so I suppose it's made of alpaca, also known as nickel silver, an alloy of copper, zinc, and nickel. With great caution, I remove the O-ring, trying not to break it, as I haven't been able to find a similar one and will need to try to reuse this one. Excellent, the hack system seems to be working perfectly. These watches were equipped with canvas fabric straps. I found one that resembles the original, and in the future, if I can, I'll replace it with an original one since they can be found online. Here it is. I hope you've enjoyed the restoration. Don't miss the next videos. I plan to make a box to store both this Waltham and the other Bulova and Elgin watches as soon as I find them, in both dustproof and waterproof versions. So, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Until next time.